Think about your morning routine for a moment. You stumble into the bathroom, reach for that familiar tube of toothpaste, and go through the motions. It's a small, daily act of cleanliness we often take for granted. But what if I told you that this simple ritual connects you directly to a civilization that thrived over 4,000 years ago? What if you could reach back through the sands of time and experience dental care not as we know it, but as the ancient Egyptians did? The idea that a pharaoh, standing before a polished bronze mirror, might have sought the same fresh, clean feeling we do is a thought that bridges millennia, linking our most ordinary moments to their extraordinary world. Today, we are doing something truly special. We are going to test an authentic ancient Egyptian toothpaste recipe. This isn't a myth or a guess. It's a formula that has survived, preserved on a papyrus scroll, detailing the exact ingredients and instructions used for dental hygiene in the age of the pyramids. We are about to mix these ancient components together and see first and how this 4,000-year-old formula performs. This is more than just an experiment. It's a journey back in time, a chance to touch a piece of daily life from one of history's most fascinating and advanced civilizations. We are going to brush our teeth exactly as they did, and then we are going to compare it to the modern toothpaste you have in your own bathroom right now. So, are you ready to see how ancient wisdom stacks up against modern science? Can a recipe conceived long before the concept of fluoride or minty freshness possibly hold its own? The answer might surprise you. This is not just about cleaning teeth. It's a test of ingenuity, a glimpse into the practical minds of people who built monuments to last forever. Their approach to health and wellness was deeply sophisticated, and their toothpaste is a tiny, intimate window into that world. So get comfortable, because we are about to unlock an ancient mystery and put a piece of history to the ultimate test. To truly appreciate what we are about to do, we need to step back and understand the world this recipe came from. Ancient Egyptian society placed an immense value on personal cleanliness and presentation, far beyond what many other ancient cultures practiced. For them, hygiene was not just a matter of vanity. It was deeply intertwined with their religion, their social status, and their very understanding of health. The sweltering Egyptian climate made regular washing essential, but they elevated it to an art form. Priests, for example, were required to bathe multiple times a day and shave their entire bodies to maintain ritual purity before performing ceremonies for the gods. This obsession with cleanliness filtered down through all levels of society, creating a culture that was remarkably advanced in its approach to personal care. Their knowledge of medicine, documented in great detail on papyrus scrolls, was extraordinarily sophisticated for its time. They had a vast understanding of human anatomy, diagnosed a wide range of illnesses, and compiled extensive lists of treatments using hundreds of different ingredients from the natural world. Cosmetics were not merely for beauty, they served practical and spiritual purposes. The famous kohl eyeliner, made from ground minerals, helped protect the eyes from the harsh glare of the sun and was believed to ward off evil spirits. Within this holistic framework of health and wellness, dental care held a surprisingly important place. We have evidence from mummies that shows they suffered from toothaches, cavities, and abscesses, just like we do. And rather than simply enduring the pain, they actively sought solutions. So how do we know the specific recipe we are testing today even existed? Our window into this ancient world comes primarily from medical papyri, the most famous of which is the Ebers Papyrus. This incredible document, dating back to around 1550 before the Common Era, is one of the oldest and most complete medical texts ever discovered. It's a massive scroll, over 20 meters long, filled with hundreds of prescriptions and spells for everything from headaches to heart disease. Nestled within its detailed entries are formulas for oral health, including remedies for strengthening teeth and creating substances to clean them. It is from texts like these that we can reconstruct the exact ingredients and methods the ancient Egyptians used. This isn't speculation, it's a direct translation of their own scientific records. This tells us something profound about their daily lives. The existence of a written toothpaste recipe indicates that oral hygiene was a practiced and valued routine, likely for those who could afford the ingredients and had the leisure to practice it. It shows a society that applied its considerable scientific curiosity to even the most mundane aspects of life. They weren't just building pyramids and temples, they were experimenting with mixtures of rock salt, mint, dried iris flowers, and pepper, grinding them into a fine powder to achieve a clean mouth. This level of detail in their medical knowledge demonstrates a practical, problem-solving mindset. They observed a common problem, dental discomfort, and the desire for a fresh mouth, and used the resources available to them to engineer a solution. It is this blend of the monumental and the mundane, the spiritual and the scientific, that makes ancient Egypt so endlessly fascinating. Their quest for cleanliness and health was a core part of their identity, and we are about to experience a small but intimate piece of that world firsthand. The moment of discovery for this particular recipe was not a single dramatic event like the opening of a tomb, but a quieter, more meticulous process of translation that unfolded in scholarly settings. Historians and linguists, working with fragile fragments of papyrus, slowly pieced together the meaning of hieratic script, the cursive form of hieroglyphics used for everyday documents. The formula we are testing today is believed to come from a collection of texts known as the Papyrus Anastasi, which, unlike the purely medical Ebers papyrus, contains a wider range of practical knowledge, including mathematical problems and instructions for various crafts. It was within this context of daily life management that a recipe for white and perfect teeth was found. Imagine the scene: a researcher, perhaps in a quiet library or museum lab, carefully scanning the ancient symbols, recognizing words for common substances, and slowly realizing they were looking at something profoundly ordinary and yet extraordinary, a guide for personal hygiene. The excitement would have built gradually. First, the identification of rock salt, a universal abrasive, then the mention of mint, a clear indication of a desire for fresh breath. But it was the inclusion of more unexpected ingredients, like dried iris flowers and grains of pepper, that truly signaled the sophistication of the formula. This wasn't just a random mixture, it was a carefully considered blend. The translator would have understood that each component served a purpose, and the act of decoding shifted from a simple linguistic exercise to a direct conversation with an ancient chemist. The gap of thousands of years suddenly collapsed in that moment of understanding. This was no longer just text on a decaying plant fiber, it was a set of instructions, a formula that could theoretically be recreated. The scribe who originally wrote it down was likely compiling knowledge for a wealthy household or a temple, ensuring that the practice of maintaining a clean and presentable mouth would be preserved. That act of preservation is what gives us such a powerful link today. We are not relying on guesswork or inferences from tomb paintings. We are working from a primary source, a contemporary document written by someone for whom this knowledge was practical and immediate. The recipe is a snapshot of applied science, a testament to the Egyptian belief that even the smallest details of life were worth perfecting. Decoding it was like finding a lost key, unlocking not a chamber of gold, but a chamber of daily routine. It provided a tangible, intimate connection to the people of that time, reminding us that beyond the grand monuments and complex religious beliefs, they were individuals who cared about the simple, human sensation of a clean mouth. This direct transmission of knowledge across millennia is what makes archaeology so thrilling. It's the recovery of lived experience, and it sets the stage for our own hands-on experiment. Now, let's get our hands on the actual recipe itself. The text, as it was written thousands of years ago, is both straightforward and a little mysterious. In its original form, it might have read something like this: a simple list of proportions for a scribe or a household servant to follow. It instructs the maker to combine 1 part of rock salt with 1 part of mint, 1 part of dried iris flower, and a small amount of pepper. On the surface, it seems simple, but for modern researchers, this short list presented a fascinating puzzle. Each of these ingredients had to be carefully identified, moving from ancient names to substances we can actually find and handle today. The first ingredient, rock salt, was the easiest to decipher. The term used was unambiguous, referring to the crystalline salt harvested from deposits or evaporated seawater. This was the primary abrasive agent in the paste. the gritty substance that would physically scrub the surfaces of the teeth. It's a brilliant choice, as salt is mildly antiseptic, and its abrasive quality is effective for removing plaque. The challenge, however, comes with the grinding process. How fine did the ancient Egyptians grind their salt? A coarse grind would be too harsh on the enamel, while an extremely fine powder might be less effective. This is one of the first practical details where we had to make an educated guess based on the tools they had available, likely using a stone mortar and pestle to achieve a consistency similar to fine sand. Next, we have mint. The ancient Egyptian word for this plant is well documented, and its use is a clear indication that fresh breath was a priority. They understood the refreshing, cleansing sensation that mint provides. But which variety of mint? There are many species, and while they all share similar properties, the specific type available along the Nile would have been the one they used. This highlights a common challenge in translating ancient texts. A single word often covers a broader category of plants than our modern scientific classifications. Experts cross-reference these terms with archaeological finds, like seeds preserved in tombs, to pinpoint the most likely candidate. The most intriguing ingredient on the list is the dried iris flower. This is not an obvious choice for a modern mind. Why would you put flowers in your toothpaste? This is where the depth of Egyptian practical knowledge truly shines. The iris, specifically the rhizome or rootstock of the plant, contains compounds that have been shown to have significant fluoride-like properties. Yes, you heard that correctly. The ancient Egyptians may have accidentally, or perhaps through careful observation, incorporated a substance that helps protect against tooth decay. This wasn't just for fragrance, it was a functional component. Identifying this was a major breakthrough, showing that their recipe was more than a simple scrub, it was a primitive form of dental treatment. Finally, the small amount of pepper is perhaps the most puzzling element. At first glance, it seems counterintuitive. Pepper is spicy and pungent. Why add it to a paste for your mouth? The consensus among historians and chemists is that it served a medicinal purpose. Pepper has antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties. For someone suffering from tender or bleeding gums, the pepper might have acted as a stimulant, increasing blood flow and helping to fight infection. It would have created a tingling, warming sensation that could be interpreted as a sign of the paste working. This ingredient transforms the mixture from a simple cleanser into a therapeutic remedy, addressing potential gum disease alongside the cleaning of the teeth themselves. Reaching this final, testable recipe was a process of collaborative deduction. Linguists provided the initial translations, botanists identified the plant species, and chemists analyzed the potential effects of each component. They had to consider trade routes, as some ingredients like pepper were valuable imports, suggesting this might have been a premium recipe for the elite. Every ambiguous term was weighed against multiple sources of evidence. The result is a formula that is not a wild guess, but a well-reasoned reconstruction, giving us the closest possible approximation to what an Egyptian pharmacist would have compounded. It's a blend of abrasive, aromatic, protective, and therapeutic elements, a sophisticated concoction that we are now ready to bring back to life. Now we come to the very heart of our experiment, interpreting the ingredients list itself, and this is where a fascinating scholarly debate begins. The first component mentioned in the ancient text presents us with our first major puzzle. The word used is often translated directly as rock salt, a substance that makes perfect sense for dental care. Rock salt, when ground into a fine powder, acts as a brilliant natural abrasive. It would have physically scrubbed the surfaces of the teeth, scraping away food particles and plaque in much the same way that mild abrasives work in some modern toothpaste. Beyond just the scrubbing action, salt is also mildly antiseptic. It can help to create an environment in the mouth that is less hospitable to the bacteria that cause decay and bad breath. For an ancient Egyptian, this would have been a readily available, effective, and logical choice. However, some linguists and historians have proposed a different interpretation for that same ancient word. They suggest it might not refer to rock salt at all, but instead to the dried and ground root of the iris flower. This alternative reading completely changes our understanding of the recipe's sophistication. The iris plant, specifically its rootstock or rhizome, was highly valued in ancient Egyptian medicine and cosmetics. When dried and powdered, it has a texture that is still slightly abrasive, but its primary benefit lies in its chemical properties. Modern analysis has revealed that iris root contains compounds that can have a mild anti-inflammatory effect, and some studies have even suggested it possesses fluoride-like qualities that could help strengthen tooth enamel against decay. If this interpretation is correct, then the ancient Egyptians weren't just using a simple scrub, they were incorporating a targeted, protective agent. So, how do we decide between rock salt and iris root? The debate hinges on the nuances of the ancient Egyptian language. The word in question might have been a broader term that could encompass both substances depending on the context, or a regional variation in its meaning. Egyptologists cross-reference the papyrus with other medical texts. They look for patterns. If the same word appears in a recipe for a skin salve, does the context better suit salt or a flower root? They also consider archaeological evidence, searching for residues in containers that might indicate which material was actually stored and used for oral care. This isn't just an academic exercise, it's a fundamental question about the intent behind the formula. Was it primarily a mechanical cleaner, or was it also a therapeutic treatment? The properties of each substance offer compelling reasons for their inclusion. The abrasive nature of rock salt provides an immediate, tangible cleaning sensation. You can feel it working. The iris root, on the other hand, offers a more subtle medicinal benefit that wouldn't be immediately apparent to the user, but could have provided long-term protection. It's possible that both interpretations have merit, and the recipe could have evolved over time or varied by region, with some preferring the salt-based version and others the plant-based one. Perhaps the most intriguing possibility is that the original scribe intended a mixture of both, creating a paste that combined the immediate cleaning power of an abrasive with the ongoing protective qualities of a medicinal plant. This level of complexity would demonstrate a remarkably advanced understanding of oral health care, moving beyond simple cleanliness toward prevention and treatment. For our test, this debate forces us to make a choice, and that choice will shape the very nature of the experience we are about to have. Moving from the debate over the base ingredient, we come to the one component that feels instantly familiar: mint. The inclusion of mint in this ancient formula is a brilliant flash of recognition across the centuries, a direct link to our own modern desire for a fresh, clean feeling after brushing. The ancient Egyptians had a sophisticated understanding of aromatic plants, and they valued mint not just for its pleasant scent, but for its powerful functional properties. They would have recognized its ability to combat bad breath, a concern as relevant in the bustling markets of Thebes as it is today. Mint contains natural antiseptic compounds, such as menthol, which help to inhibit the growth of bacteria in the mouth. For a civilization without our scientific vocabulary, this effect would have been observed empirically. They knew that chewing mint leaves left the mouth feeling cleaner and smelling better, and they wisely incorporated that knowledge into their dental care. Sourcing this ingredient would have been a straightforward process in the fertile Nile Valley. Wild mint likely grew abundantly along the riverbanks, and it could have been easily cultivated in household gardens. The preparation method, however, is another area where we must make an educated guess. The recipe calls for it to be mixed with other dry, powdered ingredients, which strongly suggests the mint was used in a dried and crushed form. Imagine an Egyptian homemaker or a temple servant gathering bundles of fresh mint, tying them together, and hanging them in a dry, shaded area to preserve their essential oils. Once brittle, the leaves would be carefully crushed using a mortar and pestle, perhaps made of basalt or limestone, into a coarse powder. This method would capture the plant's potency while allowing it to blend evenly with the salt or iris root and pepper. It's less likely they used a concentrated essential oil, as that extraction process was complex and typically reserved for precious perfumes and embalming rituals. For a daily use paste, dried leaves were practical and effective. The role of mint in this recipe extends far beyond mere flavoring. It was a crucial element for making the entire mixture palatable. Consider the potential taste of the other ingredients, the intense saltiness of rock salt, or the earthy, slightly bitter note of ground iris root, combined with the sharp heat of pepper. Without mint, the experience of using this paste could have been unpleasantly harsh. The mint's cool, refreshing character would have masked these stronger flavors, transforming a functional, medicinal scrub into a more pleasant daily ritual. This attention to the user's experience reveals a nuanced approach to wellness. The Egyptians understood that for a health practice to be sustained, it couldn't be a chore, it had to offer some immediate sensory reward. The burst of freshness from the mint provided that reward, making the act of dental care something to look forward to rather than endure. This simple ingredient, therefore, bridges the gap between basic utility and refined living, showing that even 4,000 years ago, people sought not just health, but a touch of daily pleasure. Of all the ingredients listed, pepper stands out as the most unexpected and intriguing. Why would a culture known for its sophisticated understanding of medicine include a pungent, spicy substance in a paste meant for the sensitive environment of the mouth? The answer lies not in a single reason, but in a combination of practical, medicinal, and even economic factors that reveal the depth of their knowledge. At its core, black pepper possesses powerful antibacterial and antimicrobial properties. The compound responsible for its heat, piperine, is effective at inhibiting the growth of various bacteria, including strains that contribute to gum disease and tooth decay. For an ancient Egyptian suffering from gingivitis or a minor oral infection, the pepper would have acted as a natural antiseptic, helping to cleanse the mouth and reduce harmful microbes. This therapeutic use transforms the pepper from a mere flavoring into an active medicinal agent. Beyond its antibacterial role, pepper likely served as a counter-irritant. This is a medical principle where a mild secondary irritation is applied to distract from a deeper, more significant pain. Imagine someone with aching gums or a persistent toothache. The application of a paste containing pepper would create a strong, warming, tingling sensation on the surface of the gums. This new sensation could effectively override the dull, throbbing pain of the underlying issue, providing temporary but immediate relief. It's a clever application of sensory distraction, a form of early pain management that would have been highly valued in a time without modern analgesics. The user would feel a distinct zing, a clear signal that the paste was actively working, which psychologically reinforced the treatment's effectiveness. The presence of pepper in this recipe also speaks volumes about the user's social status. Pepper was not a local plant in Egypt. It was an exotic import, a luxury good that traveled vast distances along complex trade networks. Originating from the Malabar coast of India, pepper would have been transported by sea and land, passing through many hands before reaching the markets of Memphis or Thebes. This journey made it incredibly valuable. Including pepper in a toothpaste formula indicates that this was not a common remedy for the average laborer, but rather a premium product for the elite, perhaps for a priest, a scribe, or member of the royal court. Using this paste was not just about dental hygiene. It was a subtle display of wealth and access to far-flung resources, a daily reminder of Egypt's place in a wider world of commerce. This leads to another fascinating possibility. The ingredient's rarity might have contributed to its perceived potency. In many ancient cultures, rare and expensive substances were often attributed with greater healing power simply because of their exotic nature. A spice that had journeyed from a mythical, distant land might be believed to carry special properties beyond its measurable chemical effects. This blend of empirical observation and symbolic value is characteristic of ancient Egyptian medicine, which seamlessly integrated practical remedies with spiritual belief. Therefore, the pepper was likely valued both for its genuine antibacterial benefits and for the aura of power and prestige it conferred upon the user. Its inclusion makes this ancient toothpaste far more than a simple cleaning agent. It was a sophisticated, multifunctional preparation designed to clean, heal, soothe, and impress, showcasing a holistic approach to wellness that we are only now beginning to fully appreciate. The final component, dried lily flowers. introduces a layer of cultural and sensory sophistication to the mixture. While the mint provided a familiar coolness, the lily would have contributed a delicate, floral fragrance, elevating the paste from a purely functional remedy to something approaching a luxury cosmetic. The ancient Egyptians held a deep appreciation for perfumes and scents, associating pleasant aromas with divinity, cleanliness, and high social status. Incorporating the fragrance of lilies into a daily hygiene product would have made the ritual of tooth cleaning a more elegant and pleasurable experience, appealing to the senses in a way that reinforced the user's commitment to personal refinement. This wasn't just about health, it was about crafting an identity of purity and grace. The choice of lilies was likely no accident, given their profound symbolic importance in Egyptian culture. The white lotus, often grouped with lilies in ancient iconography, was a powerful symbol of creation, rebirth, and the sun itself. It emerges pure and beautiful from the murky waters of the Nile, representing the idea of new life and resurrection, themes central to their entire worldview. By including lily flowers in a paste used for cleansing the mouth, the gateway for speech and sustenance, they may have been invoking these symbolic properties. It was a way of aligning a simple daily act with the cosmic order, imbuing it with a spiritual significance. Each brushing could be seen as a small ritual of purification, not just for the body, but for the spirit, washing away impurity much as the lotus rises unstained from the water. Beyond the symbolic and aromatic, the lily flowers may have offered subtle practical benefits that the Egyptians observed through use. Certain species of lilies possess mild astringent properties, meaning they can cause a slight tightening of the tissue. When applied to the gums, this could have provided a soothing, toning sensation, potentially reducing minor inflammation or sensitivity. While not as potent as the pepper's antimicrobial action, this gentle astringency would have complemented the other ingredients, contributing to an overall feeling of oral wellness. It's a perfect example of their holistic approach, where no component served only one purpose. Each element worked on multiple levels, practical, sensory, and symbolic, to create a comprehensive product. Processing the lilies for this recipe would have been a careful, patient task. The flowers would have been harvested at their peak, likely early in the morning when their scent was strongest. They would then be spread out in a shaded, airy place to dry slowly, preserving their delicate fragrance and preventing them from turning brittle and losing their volatile oils. Once thoroughly dried, the fragile petals would be ground, probably with a stone pestle in a mortar, into the finest powder possible. This fine grinding was essential to ensure the paste had a smooth, consistent texture, avoiding any coarse pieces that might irritate the gums. The resulting powder, pale and fragrant, would then be meticulously mixed with the other ingredients until the blend was uniform. This entire process, from harvest to final mixture, reflects a methodical, almost reverent approach to creating something that was both effective and beautiful, a small masterpiece of ancient self-care. With the recipe fully decoded, our next step was to embark on a modern-day treasure hunt. But instead of gold, we were searching for authenticity. The success of this entire experiment hinged on our ability to source ingredients that were as close as possible to what an ancient Egyptian would have recognized. This meant moving beyond the generic versions we find on supermarket shelves and seeking out specific heirloom varieties that have changed very little over the centuries. We couldn't just grab a container of iodized table salt and a packet of dried mint from the spice aisle. We had to think like an ancient apothecary, considering the origin, purity, and preparation of each component. Our quest began with the most debated ingredient. After careful consideration of the historical arguments, we decided to test the recipe using rock salt as the primary abrasive. To find the right kind, we avoided processed, finely ground table salt, which contains anti-caking agents. Instead, we sought out pure, coarse Himalayan pink salt and a gray Celtic sea salt. These salts are harvested using traditional evaporation methods, contain trace minerals just like the salts the Egyptians would have gathered from desert deposits or the Nile Delta, and their crystalline structure allows us to grind them to a historically plausible consistency. Using a heavy granite mortar and pestle, we could control the fineness of the grind, aiming for a texture somewhere between fine sand and powder. which would be effective for cleaning without being overly harsh on the enamel. The search for mint was a journey into the world of heirloom botany. Common spearmint or peppermint from a garden center wouldn't do, as these are modern hybrids cultivated for specific oil content. We needed a variety that was genetically closer to the wild mints that grew along the Nile. This led us to sources specializing in ancient and medicinal herbs, where we found what is often called Egyptian mint, a variety with a slightly sharper, more pungent aroma. We sourced it both as whole dried leaves to replicate the ancient grinding process, and to ensure the volatile oils that provide that fresh sensation were as potent as they would have been thousands of years ago. Grinding the brittle leaves released an incredibly vibrant scent, a direct aromatic link to the past. The most challenging ingredient to source authentically was the dried iris flowers. Not just any iris would suffice. We needed the specific species, likely Iris germanica, or a similar variant that was native to the region. Sourcing the actual flowers proved difficult, but we were able to find ethically harvested, dried iris rhizome, the rootstock, which is where the beneficial fluoride-like compounds are concentrated. This root, when dried, is hard as rock and requires significant effort to break down. Grinding it was a slow, labor-intensive process, far more demanding than the salt or mint, and it produced a fine, pale powder with a distinctly earthy, almost spicy fragrance. This hands-on effort gave us a real appreciation for the work involved in creating even a small batch of this ancient paste. Finding authentic black pepper meant looking beyond the standard pre-ground black pepper in a tin. We sought out whole telecherry peppercorns, a specific variety from India known for its complexity and potency, which would be a close analog to the high-quality peppercorns that would have been traded along ancient routes. By grinding these ourselves moments before mixing, we captured the full pungency and piperine content, ensuring its antimicrobial properties were at their peak. Each ingredient, carefully selected and prepared, was then weighed out according to the simple 1-to-1 ratios described in the papyrus. This meticulous approach to sourcing wasn't about being pedantic. It was the only way to ensure our test would be a genuine evaluation of the ancient Egyptian formula, not just a modern interpretation. The true taste test was about to begin. Armed with our carefully sourced ingredients, the real work began, the transformation of raw materials into a usable paste. To truly walk in the footsteps of an ancient Egyptian, we had to abandon our modern appliances. There would be no electric coffee grinder or food processor here. Instead, we turned to the most fundamental of tools, a heavy granite mortar and pestle. This simple technology, a bowl and a club made of stone, was a staple in every Egyptian household, from a humble village dwelling to the bustling workshop of a royal physician. Using it is an intensely physical and surprisingly meditative process, one that connects you directly to the rhythm of ancient life. The first ingredient to meet the stone was the rock salt. Pouring the coarse, pinkish crystals into the granite mortar, the first strike of the pestle produced a loud, sharp crack that echoed in the room. This wasn't a gentle process. It required sustained, forceful pressure, grinding the pestle in a circular motion against the bottom and sides of the bowl. With each rotation, the large crystals fractured into smaller and smaller pieces, the sound shifting from a loud crunch to a softer, sandy whisper. A fine dust rose into the air, carrying the sharp, clean scent of the sea. It took several minutes of continuous effort to achieve the desired consistency, a powder fine enough to feel smooth between the fingers, yet still possessing enough grit to be an effective abrasive. This alone was a reminder of the daily labor involved in ancient preparations. We were just making a small batch, but imagine grinding enough salt for an entire household's monthly needs. Next, we introduced the dried mint leaves. They rustled like parchment as we placed them atop the now powdered salt. The first press of the pestle released an incredible burst of fragrance, an aromatic cloud of cool, earthy sweetness that instantly filled the space. The brittle leaves shattered easily, but the goal was to reduce them to a powder as fine as the salt, which meant patiently grinding them until they were fully incorporated. The mixture began to take on a pale green hue, and the separate scents of salt and mint started to blend into a single, more complex aroma. This step felt more delicate, a contrast to the brute force needed for the salt, yet it still demanded attention to ensure a uniform texture. Then came the greatest challenge, the dried iris root. This was unlike anything else. The hard, woody chunks of rhizome were incredibly dense, resembling small, gnarled stones more than a plant. The first attempt to crush them resulted in the pestle simply skittering across the surface. It required a new technique: short, sharp, hammer-like blows to initially fracture the roots into smaller pieces before we could even begin the grinding process. This was by far the most strenuous part, a true test of endurance that made our wrists and forearms ache. Slowly, painstakingly, the hard chunks yielded, breaking down into a fibrous, then finally a fine, pale beige powder. The effort involved was immense, giving us a profound appreciation for the value of this ingredient. Its inclusion in the recipe signified a commitment to its perceived benefits, because no one would go through this trouble for a minor component. Finally, we added the whole telecheri peppercorns. Their dark, wrinkled spheres were tossed into the mortar with the now combined salt, mint, and iris root powder. The first grind released the iconic spicy, pungent scent of pepper, which cut dramatically through the cooler mint and earthy iris. It was a powerful, awakening aroma. We ground them just enough to break them down, but not so much that they lost all their texture. Wanting to preserve some of the granular quality, the final act was to mix everything together with the pestle, swirling the 4 distinct powders until they formed a single, homogeneous blend. The resulting mixture was a fascinating sight: a coarse, earthy toned powder flecked with darker specks of pepper, a world away from the uniform, smooth gels we're accustomed to. Holding the mortar, feeling the weight of the stone, and looking at the powder we had created with nothing but muscle and patience was a powerful moment. We hadn't just mixed ingredients, we had performed an ancient ritual, experiencing a small but tangible fraction of the daily effort that defined life along the Nile. Now that we have our 4 powders meticulously ground and combined, the next critical step is to bring this ancient mixture to life by transforming it from a dry, gritty powder into a workable paste. This is where the recipe on the papyrus becomes a bit more open to interpretation, presenting us with another fascinating historical puzzle. The original text likely assumed the user possessed common household knowledge, leaving the specific choice of liquid unstated. For an Egyptian living thousands of years ago, the options would have been drawn directly from their everyday environment: simple water from the Nile, vinegar made from fermented dates or grapes, or perhaps most startling to our modern sensibilities, urine. Each of these liquids would have imparted very different properties to the final paste, and our choice would significantly alter the experience and potential effectiveness of the formula. Water is the most obvious and universal choice. Using clean water to form a paste would have been the simplest method, creating a straightforward, abrasive slurry. The advantage of water is its neutrality. It wouldn't alter the fundamental chemistry of the ingredients, allowing us to test the base properties of the salt, mint, iris, and pepper without interference. However, water has a key drawback. It lacks any inherent cleaning or antiseptic power of its own. It merely acts as a binder, a way to get the powder to stick to the teeth and gums. A paste made with water would be purely mechanical in its action, relying solely on the abrasive grit to scrub the teeth clean. Vinegar, on the other hand, introduces a powerful chemical component. The ancient Egyptians were skilled brewers and vintners, and vinegar was a common byproduct readily available in most households. From a practical standpoint, vinegar's acidity would have served as a potent antimicrobial agent, killing bacteria in the mouth far more effectively than water alone. It could have helped to dissolve some of the plaque buildup on the teeth, enhancing the cleaning power of the abrasive salts. However, there is a significant risk here. Modern dentistry warns strongly against the use of acidic substances on tooth enamel, as they can erode and weaken the protective outer layer over time, leading to increased sensitivity and decay. Would the ancient Egyptians have been aware of this trade-off, or did the immediate antibacterial benefits outweigh the potential for long-term damage in their view? Then we come to the most controversial possibility: urine. While the idea is deeply unappealing to us today, the use of urine for cleaning and medicinal purposes was surprisingly common in the ancient world. The Romans, for instance, are famously documented to have used urine as a mouthwash due to its ammonia content, which acts as a bleaching and cleansing agent. Ammonia is a powerful solvent, and it's conceivable that the Egyptians might have experimented with it for a similar whitening effect. Yet despite its potential cleaning power, the historical evidence for its use in Egyptian dental preparations is far less concrete than for vinegar or water. Given the Egyptian obsession with ritual purity and cleanliness, the use of a waste product in a daily hygiene ritual seems somewhat contradictory, though not entirely impossible for its perceived medicinal benefits. For our test, we decided to create 2 separate batches to explore the most plausible scenarios. The first batch would be mixed with pure water, giving us a baseline experience of the recipe's core ingredients. The second batch would be mixed with a mild vinegar, specifically apple cider vinegar, to represent the kind of fruit-based vinegar an Egyptian household might have used. This allows us to evaluate the potential enhancement of the antibacterial properties against the undeniable sharp, sour taste. The process of mixing itself is a delicate art. You start by placing a small amount of the powder into a separate, smaller dish. A simple ceramic bowl would have been used in antiquity. Then you add the liquid drop by drop, stirring continuously with a small stick or a finger. The goal is to achieve a consistency similar to modern toothpaste, thick enough to cling to a brushing tool without being so wet that it drips, but also not so dry that it remains a crumbling powder. It's a tactile process of adjustment, adding more powder if it becomes too thin or more liquid if it remains too thick. Getting this texture right is crucial, as it will determine how easily the paste can be applied and how well it stays in contact with the teeth to do its work. Holding the small ceramic bowl containing our freshly mixed paste, the first thing that strikes you is its appearance. It looks nothing like the uniform, bright white or blue striped gel we squeeze from a modern tube. This ancient concoction has a coarse, almost gritty texture that you can see from an arm's length away. The color is a muted, earthy beige, heavily flecked with dark brown and black specks from the coarsely ground pepper and the deeper tones of the iris root. It has the look of wet sand from a riverbank, mixed with finely crushed herbs, which in many ways is exactly what it is. Unlike the smooth, homogeneous paste we're used to, this mixture has a certain rustic, handmade quality that immediately signals its origins. When you dip a finger in, it doesn't glide, it scrapes slightly, confirming the presence of all those carefully ground abrasives ready for action. Then comes the moment of truth, the smell test. Bringing the bowl closer, the first aroma that hits you is not the mint, but the pepper. It's a sharp, spicy, almost woody scent that rises immediately, a clear announcement of its presence. A moment later, the cool, familiar fragrance of the mint emerges, not as a single note, but as a wave that tries to cool down the pepper's heat. It creates a fascinating olfactory battle, a warm, pungent spice intertwined with a cool, refreshing herb. Underneath it all is a deep, earthy, slightly floral base note from the iris root, giving the overall scent a grounded, botanical complexity. It is not what anyone would call a fresh scent by modern standards. There are no overpowering artificial notes of wintergreen or bubblegum here. This is a robust, herbal, and frankly, quite medicinal smell. It smells like something that would work, like a potent poultice or a strong herbal tea, rather than something designed purely for pleasure. Comparing this sensory experience to opening a cap of modern toothpaste is like comparing a walk through a wild forest to a stroll through a carefully curated botanical garden. Our toothpastes are engineered for immediate sensory appeal, a burst of sharp, sweet mint that smells clean and almost candy-like. The texture is smooth, often glossy, and visually pristine. The ancient paste offers none of that engineered familiarity. Its smell is complex and somewhat challenging, a blend of elements that don't naturally seem to belong together in our modern conception of oral care. The pepper, in particular, is the wild card, introducing a warmth that feels more culinary than hygienic. This isn't a product designed in a lab for mass appeal, it's an apothecary's blend, where function clearly took precedence over universally pleasant fragrance. The overall impression is one of potency and purpose, setting a very different expectation for the taste test to come. The moment of truth has arrived, and it's a surprisingly nerve-wracking one. Dipping a clean, damp toothbrush into the small ceramic bowl, the coarse paste clings to the bristles with a texture that is immediately foreign. It doesn't glide on, it mounds like wet sand. Taking a deep breath, the first impression is not taste, but smell a potent wave of earthy pepper and herbs that fills your nostrils right before the brush makes contact. Then it happens. The initial sensation is an intense, granular scrub. The finely ground rock salt is the undeniable star, its grittiness pronounced against the enamel. It's not a smooth polish. It's a thorough, almost aggressive scouring that you can hear as a faint, sandy rasp. This is clearly a paste designed for mechanical action above all else. After a few seconds of brushing, the flavor profile begins to unfold in complex, layered stages. The saltiness is powerful, yes, but it's not the single-note salinity of seawater. It forms a sharp, mineral-rich base. Then, the pepper announces itself. It's not a subtle warmth. It's a distinct, spicy tingle that spreads across the gums and tongue, creating a genuine heat that is both startling and invigorating. This isn't the mild kick of a spicy food. It's a genuine, low-level burning sensation that makes your entire mouth feel alive and stimulated. Just as the pepper begins to border on uncomfortable, the mint makes its entrance. But this is not the sweet, almost candy-like mint of modern toothpaste. The coolness of the dried Egyptian mint is herbal, slightly bitter, and robust. It doesn't overpower the pepper, it engages with it, creating a fascinating battle on your palate between heat and cool, spice and refreshment. Underneath it all is the deep, floral earthiness of the iris root, grounding the experience and giving it an undeniable botanical complexity. The overall palatability is, to be perfectly honest, challenging for a modern palate conditioned by decades of sweet, smooth gels. This is not a paste designed for pleasure, it's a functional preparation. The combination of intense salt, significant heat, and a bitter mint is bracing, to say the least. There is no sweetness whatsoever. The experience is medicinal, potent, and leaves no doubt that something active is happening in your mouth. The feeling after spitting it out is equally unique. The expected minty fresh sensation is entirely absent. Instead, your mouth feels incredibly clean, but in a raw, scrubbed way. The peppery warmth lingers for several minutes, a constant, tingling reminder of the paste's presence. Your teeth feel smooth, perhaps smoother than after using some modern toothpastes, but the overall sensation is one of having used a powerful, natural cleanser rather than a refreshing cosmetic. Comparing this to the experience of a modern toothpaste is like comparing a hand-forged tool to a precision-engineered instrument. Our contemporary toothpastes are masterpieces of sensory engineering. They are smooth, sweet, and foamy, creating a voluminous lather that feels luxurious and leaves behind a powerful, lasting coolness. The entire process is designed to be a pleasant, rewarding ritual. The ancient Egyptian paste offers none of that engineered comfort. Its value lies in its stark functionality and its undeniable potency. You don't use this paste for a fresh burst of flavor. You use it because you believe it will clean your teeth effectively and treat your gums. The lingering pepper heat, which might be off-putting at first, could easily be interpreted by an ancient user as a sign of the paste's healing power at work, a tangible sensation of purification. It's a powerful reminder that our definition of fresh is a modern construct, and that for the Egyptians, a clean mouth was likely synonymous with a feeling of robust herbal potency and medicinal strength. The true test of any toothpaste is in the brushing, and applying this ancient mixture to my teeth was an experience unlike any other. The moment the bristles, laden with the gritty paste, made contact with my teeth, the first and overwhelming sensation was one of intense abrasion. It's immediately apparent that this is a formula designed for mechanical cleaning above all else. You can actually hear a faint, sandy scraping sound as you brush, a stark contrast to the silent, smooth glide of modern gels. The texture is undeniably coarse, feeling more like a fine polishing compound than a creamy toothpaste. Each grain of salt makes its presence known, scrubbing the surface of the enamel with a determined, almost rugged force. For someone accustomed to the gentle foaming action of contemporary brands, the initial feeling is jarring, even harsh. Comparing this level of abrasiveness to a modern product reveals a significant difference in philosophy. Many commercial, whitening toothpastes also rely on abrasives to remove surface stains from coffee, tea, or wine. However, those abrasives are typically highly engineered particles like hydrated silica, which are calibrated to be effective yet safe for daily use on enamel. The ancient Egyptian paste, with its irregular, hand-ground rock salt crystals, operates on a much more fundamental and less refined level. The particles are not uniformly shaped or sized, which means some provide a gentle polish, while others might offer a more aggressive scrub. In terms of raw cleaning power, this ancient formula likely excels at physically scraping away plaque and food debris. The gritty texture ensures maximum contact and friction, leaving the teeth feeling exceptionally clean, almost like they've been professionally scaled. This leads directly to the critical question of safety and the potential trade-off between cleaning efficacy and enamel wear. The primary pro of this abrasive texture is its undeniable effectiveness. In an era without professional dental cleanings, a paste that could physically scour the teeth would have been invaluable for preventing the buildup of tartar, which can lead to gum disease. The salt, combined with the antimicrobial action of the pepper and mint, would have created a powerful 1-2 punch against oral bacteria. However, the potential con is substantial. Modern dentistry warns strongly against using overly abrasive substances on teeth, as they can gradually erode the protective enamel layer. Once enamel is worn away, it does not regenerate, leading to increased sensitivity, a higher risk of cavities, and a yellowed appearance as the darker dentin underneath becomes visible. The key factor here is likely the frequency of use and the technique applied. An Egyptian user might not have brushed with the same paste twice a day, every single day, as we are advised to do today. It might have been a less frequent ritual, or used with a much gentler hand. Furthermore, the other ingredients in the paste might have offered some mitigating benefits. The potential fluoride-like compounds in the iris root could have provided a small degree of protection, helping to remineralize the enamel and counteract some of the abrasive damage. It's a fascinating balance of aggressive cleaning and potential natural protection. Ultimately, this ancient recipe embodies a practical, problem-solving approach where the immediate benefit of a thoroughly clean mouth may have been deemed worth the potential long-term risk, especially in a time when tooth decay and gum infection posed a far more immediate and dangerous threat than gradual enamel wear. The feeling it leaves behind is not one of minty freshness, but of raw, undeniable cleanliness, a sensation that must have been profoundly valuable in the ancient world. After spitting out the ancient mixture and taking a long drink of water to rinse, the first thing you notice is the complete absence of foam. There's no satisfying lather to wash away, just the clear water turning a murky beige as it carries the gritty particles down the drain. The immediate sensation on the tongue and teeth is one of stark, unambiguous cleanliness. It's a different kind of clean than we're used to, not a slick, polished feeling, but a raw, almost squeaky sensation, as if every microscopic crevice has been thoroughly scoured. Running your tongue over your teeth confirms this. They feel incredibly smooth, perhaps even more so than after a standard brushing with a modern paste. The abrasive power of the rock salt has undoubtedly done its job, leaving behind a surface free of any lingering film or plaque. The state of the breath, however, is a more complex story. The initial expectation is for a wave of minty freshness, but that's not what arrives. Instead, the dominant lingering flavor is a warm, earthy, herbal combination. The sharp heat from the pepper has subsided into a gentle, pervasive warmth that lingers on the gums, while the mint provides a cool, botanical undertone rather than a sharp burst. It's not minty fresh in the commercial sense. It's more like the feeling you have after drinking a strong, unsweetened herbal tea. Your breath doesn't smell artificially perfumed. It smells clean in a natural, almost medicinal way. There's no sugary sweetness to mask odors, just the robust, lingering scent of the ingredients themselves. For someone expecting a familiar, just brushed scent, this could be disappointing, but it leaves a distinct impression of potency and natural purification. Comparing this after feeling to the experience of using a modern toothpaste highlights a fundamental philosophical difference. our contemporary products are designed for a sensory payoff. The foaming action, created by detergents like sodium lauryl sulfate, provides a psychological sense of deep cleaning, even though the foam itself isn't strictly necessary for plaque removal. The powerful, sweet mint flavoring leaves a strong, lasting coolness that signals freshness for hours. The ancient Egyptian paste offers none of that engineered reassurance. Its value is purely functional. The cleanliness it provides is tangible and physical, but the sensory experience is far more austere. There's no foaming luxury, no lingering sweet coolness, just the undeniable result of a thorough, gritty scrub and the subtle, complex aroma of herbs and spice. A surprising positive is the lasting sensation of gum stimulation. The peppery warmth, which was initially so startling, leaves the gums feeling invigorated and slightly tightened, almost as if they've received a mild, stimulating massage. This sensation persists for a noticeable amount of time, and it's easy to imagine how an ancient user might interpret this persistent tingling as a sign of the paste's healing power, actively working to strengthen and protect the gums. This stands in contrast to some modern toothpastes that can sometimes leave a slight chemical aftertaste or a dry feeling in the mouth from the detergents. The ancient formula, for all its roughness, feels entirely natural and surprisingly gentle on the soft tissues after the initial shock of the pepper wears off. The most significant drawback from a modern perspective is the lack of that instant, recognizable, fresh breath signal. In our world, that minty sensation is synonymous with oral cleanliness. Without it, even though your teeth feel scrubbed and your breath likely smells neutral and herbal, there's a psychological gap. You don't get the same immediate reward that encourages consistent use. Furthermore, the coarse texture, while effective, might be too harsh for everyday use on modern enamel, which isn't accustomed to such aggressive abrasion. The experience is a powerful reminder that our definition of clean is heavily influenced by a century of product marketing and sensory engineering. The ancient Egyptian standard was clearly rooted in tangible results and medicinal sensation rather than fleeting, perfumed pleasure. It leaves you with a profound appreciation for their pragmatic approach, even if it's an experience most of us would not choose to make a daily ritual. Stepping back from the sensory experience, the real question is whether this ancient concoction was actually good for your teeth. To answer that, we need to put on our lab coats and analyze each ingredient through the lens of modern science, evaluating its potential to fight the two great enemies of oral health, plaque and gingivitis. First, let's consider the abrasive base. Rock salt, when ground, is composed of hard, irregular crystals. From a dental perspective, this makes it an effective mechanical agent for disrupting and removing dental plaque, which is a sticky biofilm of bacteria that constantly forms in our teeth. By physically scrubbing this film away, the salt would have directly reduced the primary cause of both tooth decay and gum inflammation. Furthermore, salt creates a hypertonic environment. This means it can draw moisture out of bacterial cells through osmosis, effectively inhibiting their growth and providing a mild antiseptic effect that would have complemented the physical cleaning action. Then we have the mint, which contributes far more than just aroma. The essential oils in mint, particularly menthol and thymol, are well documented in modern science for their antimicrobial and antifungal properties. These compounds can penetrate the cell walls of bacteria, disrupting their function and preventing them from multiplying. In the context of this toothpaste, the mint would have served as a natural antiseptic, targeting the bacteria that the abrasive salt might have missed. It would have been particularly effective against the strains of bacteria that produce volatile sulfur compounds, which are the primary cause of bad breath. So, the refreshing feeling wasn't just psychological. It was a sign of a genuine, ongoing antibacterial action that would have helped maintain a healthier oral environment long after brushing. The most scientifically intriguing ingredient is undoubtedly the pepper. Its active component, piperine, is more than just a source of heat. Studies have shown that piperine possesses significant antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties. It can interfere with the communication systems between bacteria, a process known as quorum sensing, which bacteria use to coordinate their attacks and form more resilient biofilms. By disrupting this communication, pepper could have made the bacterial plaque more vulnerable to the abrasive action of the salt. Additionally, its anti-inflammatory effect would have been directly beneficial for gingivitis, the early stage of gum disease characterized by redness, swelling, and bleeding. The warming, tingling sensation caused by the pepper would have been accompanied by increased blood flow to the gums, which can help deliver immune cells to fight infection and promote healing, acting as a natural counter-irritant to soothe inflammation. But the true masterstroke of this recipe may lie in the most debated component, the iris flower. If the recipe did indeed use ground iris root, as some scholars argue, then the ancient Egyptians may have stumbled upon a form of fluoride therapy thousands of years before its official discovery. Analysis of iris root has revealed the presence of organic compounds that, when broken down, can release small amounts of fluoride ions. Fluoride is the cornerstone of modern preventive dentistry because it integrates into the tooth's enamel, creating a more acid-resistant surface that is less vulnerable to decay. Even a minuscule amount, consistently applied, can offer a significant protective benefit. This suggests the recipe wasn't just about cleaning the teeth of the past. It might have been actively strengthening them for the future. When we consider these ingredients working together, a picture of remarkable sophistication emerges. This wasn't a simple, one-note formula. It was a multi-targeted approach to oral healthcare. The salt provided the brute force mechanical cleaning, scouring away the physical plaque. The mint and pepper then delivered a 1-2 punch of antiseptic and antibacterial action, killing lingering microbes and calming inflamed gums. And if iris root was present, it added a slow-release protective agent to fortify the enamel against future attacks. In an era without the concept of germs, the Egyptians empirically developed a blend that addressed the problem on multiple fronts. It likely would have been very effective at controlling plaque and managing mild gingivitis, offering a genuine therapeutic benefit that goes far beyond mere fresh breath. This combination of abrasive, antiseptic, antibacterial, and potential remineralizing agents shows a depth of practical knowledge that is truly impressive, proving that their approach to wellness was both holistic and surprisingly advanced. For all its ingenuity, we have to address the elephant in the room. What was the long-term cost of such a powerful, abrasive clean? Looking at this recipe with our modern understanding of dentistry reveals some significant potential risks that the ancient Egyptians would not have been aware of. The most glaring concern is the effect of that gritty rock salt on tooth enamel. Enamel is the hardest substance in the human body, but it's not indestructible. It can be worn down by persistent abrasion, and once it's gone, it doesn't grow back. The irregular, hand-ground salt crystals in this paste, while excellent at scraping away plaque, would have acted like fine sandpaper on the teeth with every use. Over months and years of daily brushing, this could have led to a gradual, irreversible thinning of the enamel, especially along the gum line and on the chewing surfaces. This enamel erosion would have created a cascade of dental problems. As the protective outer layer wears away, the underlying dentin becomes exposed. Dentin is softer and more yellow in color, so teeth would not only become more sensitive to hot, cold, and sweet foods, but would also start to appear discolored, the opposite of the white and perfect teeth the recipe promised. More critically, weakened enamel is far more susceptible to cavities. The very paste designed to prevent decay could, with consistent use, have made the teeth more vulnerable to it. This presents a tragic irony. A solution that provided short-term cleanliness might have contributed to long-term damage. It's likely that the rate of abrasion was somewhat mitigated by other factors in their diet and lifestyle. They didn't have the constant acid attacks from sugary soft drinks that we do today, but the fundamental risk was still present. Then, there's the matter of the pepper. While its antimicrobial properties are beneficial, its primary characteristic is that it's an irritant. For an individual with healthy gums, the warming, tingling sensation might have been stimulating. But for someone already suffering from gingivitis, inflamed, tender, and bleeding gums, applying a paste laced with pepper could have been intensely painful and potentially counterproductive. Instead of soothing the inflammation, it might have exacerbated it, causing a burning sensation that could discourage people from maintaining their oral hygiene precisely when they needed it most. Think of it like putting a spicy rub on an open wound. The intention might be to cleanse it, but the immediate effect is severe discomfort. The ancient Egyptians understood the concept of pain relief from other medical texts, but they may not have made the connection that their toothpaste could be causing localized irritation. This brings us to a crucial point about historical perspective. We cannot judge a 4,000-year-old recipe by the standards of 21st century science. For the ancient Egyptians, the immediate benefits of this paste likely far outweighed the potential long-term risks that they could not observe. In their world, the most pressing dental threats were not slow enamel wear, but painful abscesses, severe gum infections, and tooth loss that could lead to malnutrition and even death. A paste that effectively removed plaque and food debris, freshened the breath, and provided a stimulating sensation that felt like it was healing the gums would have been considered a remarkable success. The potential for enamel damage over decades was an invisible problem compared to the immediate relief from the discomfort of rotting food and infected gums. Therefore, viewing this recipe as flawed is missing the point. It represents a brilliant, practical application of the knowledge and materials available at the time. It was a solution tailored to the most urgent problems they faced. Theirs was a world where a toothache could be a life-threatening condition, and any remedy that offered cleanliness and a sense of medicinal power was invaluable. This balanced view doesn't diminish their achievement, it contextualizes it. It shows us that innovation is always a product of its environment, addressing the perceived needs with the tools at hand. The ancient Egyptian toothpaste formula stands as a testament to their proactive approach to health, a sophisticated blend of observation and experimentation that for its time was undoubtedly advanced. But to truly appreciate the context of the Egyptian formula, we need to leap forward several millennia. The ancient world gave way to the medieval period and eventually to the 18th and 19th centuries, a time often called the early modern era. And here, we find a fascinating parallel that places the Egyptian approach in a much broader historical context. For a long time, even into the age of enlightenment and industrialization, the primary method for cleaning teeth remained remarkably similar: abrasive powders. The specific ingredients changed with geography and fashion, but the fundamental principle of scrubbing the teeth with a gritty substance persisted for thousands of years. In the 1700s and 1800s, particularly in Europe and America, the most common dental cleaners were commercially produced tooth powders. If you walked into an apothecary shop in London or Paris around the year 1850, you wouldn't find a tube of toothpaste. You would find small ceramic jars filled with a dry powder. And the main ingredient in many of these powders was something that would make us cringe today: pulverized brick dust or crushed porcelain. Just like the Egyptians used rock salt, these early modern powders relied on a hard, granular substance to physically scour the teeth. Other popular abrasives included chalk, which is calcium carbonate, and even crushed charcoal. The goal was identical to that of the ancient Egyptians: to remove stains and the visible film on teeth through mechanical action. This comparison reveals a crucial point about the history of dental care. The journey wasn't a straight line from primitive paste to advanced gel. Instead, it was a long plateau where the abrasive method reigned supreme. The Egyptian recipe, with its rock salt base, wasn't an isolated oddity. It was an early, sophisticated entry in a tradition that dominated oral hygiene for centuries. In fact, one could argue that the Egyptian mixture was, in some ways, more advanced than its early modern counterparts. While the 19th century powders often relied on a single, harsh abrasive like brick dust, the Egyptian formula combined its abrasive salt with antibacterial mint, therapeutic pepper, and potentially protective iris root. It was a multifunctional blend, whereas many early modern powders were single-purpose scrubs with little thought for gum health or breath freshening. The motivations behind these recipes also differed in telling ways. The Egyptian recipe, as you've seen, emerged from a holistic medical tradition that valued both practical and spiritual purity. The early modern tooth powders, however, were often driven by a growing obsession with social class and appearance during the Victorian era. As sugar became more widely available and tooth decay more common, having visibly white teeth became a marker of status and cleanliness. Advertisements for these powders didn't emphasize health. They promised a sparkling, pearl-white smile to help one climb the social ladder. The Egyptian approach was fundamentally about wellness within a cosmic order, while the early modern approach was increasingly about vanity and social conformity. Yet, both eras shared a common limitation: a complete lack of understanding about the delicate nature of tooth enamel. Neither the Egyptian scribe nor the Victorian chemist knew that their aggressive abrasives were slowly wearing away the very surface they were trying to clean. It's a poignant historical irony. The quest for a clean, white smile using brick dust or salt inadvertently made teeth more yellow and sensitive over time by exposing the darker dentin underneath. This shared flaw underscores how dental science was held back for centuries by a fundamental gap in knowledge. It wasn't until the late 19th and early 20th centuries that dentistry began to understand the causes of decay and the importance of preserving enamel, leading to the development of fluoride and the smooth, less abrasive paste we use today. Seeing the Egyptian recipe in this light doesn't diminish its ingenuity. Instead, it highlights its place as a key milestone in humanity's long and often rough road to understanding oral health. This comparison between ancient and early modern tooth powders reveals a surprising truth, but the story doesn't end in the 19th century. If we fast forward to our own time, we find a fascinating resurgence of these very same principles in the modern natural and clean beauty movement. It's as if we've come full circle, rediscovering the value of simple, plant-based ingredients that our ancestors understood intuitively. Today, you can walk into any health food store or browse online and find a plethora of toothpastes that proudly advertise their lack of artificial chemicals, highlighting instead ingredients like baking soda, charcoal, and essential oil. And when you look at the formulas of these contemporary products, the parallels to our ancient Egyptian recipe are nothing short of remarkable. The most direct parallel is the use of a primary abrasive. Just as the Egyptians relied on rock salt to physically scrub the teeth, many modern natural toothpastes use baking soda or sodium bicarbonate as their main cleaning agent. Baking soda is a mild abrasive that effectively polishes the teeth and neutralizes acids in the mouth, which helps to fight cavities. Other popular natural alternatives include activated charcoal, which is praised for its ability to absorb toxins and lift surface stain. While the specific materials have changed, the underlying mechanism is identical to the ancient approach, employing a gritty substance to achieve mechanical cleanliness. The key difference lies in refinement. Modern manufacturers carefully control the particle size of baking soda to ensure it is effective yet gentle, whereas the ancient Egyptians had to rely on the inconsistent results of hand grinding. This shows an evolution in our understanding of safety, but the core concept of abrasive cleaning has endured for millennia. Then we have the role of essential oils for flavor and antiseptic power. The ancient Egyptians used dried and ground mint leaves to introduce a fresh sensation and combat bacteria. Today's natural toothpaste achieve this with concentrated essential oils extracted from plants like peppermint, spearmint, tea tree, and eucalyptus. These oils are far more potent than simply crushed leaves, but their purpose is precisely the same. Peppermint oil provides that familiar cooling burst, while tea tree oil is valued for its powerful antimicrobial properties, mirroring the dual role that mint and pepper played in the ancient formula. It's a clear case of modern science isolating and amplifying the active compounds that ancient cultures used in their whole plant form. The intention to freshen breath and create a healthier oral environment is a direct through line from the banks of the Nile to the shelves of our contemporary bathrooms. Perhaps the most profound parallel is the holistic philosophy that underpins both the ancient recipe and the modern natural movement. The ancient Egyptians didn't separate oral health from overall wellness. It was part of an integrated system that included diet, ritual, and spiritual purity. They sought ingredients that served multiple purposes: cleaning, healing, and protecting. Similarly, modern consumers who choose natural toothpastes are often motivated by a desire to avoid synthetic chemicals like sodium lauryl sulfate, artificial sweeteners, and preservative. They are making a conscious choice for what they perceive as a purer, more whole-body approach to health, believing that what goes in their mouth impacts their entire system. This represents a significant shift away from the purely cosmetic, focus group tested toothpaste of the mid-20th century and a return to a more ingredient-conscious, wellness-oriented philosophy that would have been very familiar to an Egyptian healer. However, a critical distinction exists, and it lies in the application of scientific rigor. The ancient Egyptians developed their recipe through empirical observation. They noticed that certain plants made the mouth feel better and appear cleaner, so they continued to use them. Modern natural toothpaste brands, on the other hand, operate in a world with access to microbiology labs and clinical studies. They can test their formulations against specific strains of bacteria, measure enamel wear with precision instruments, and optimize for both safety and efficacy. This allows them to create products that capture the wisdom of ancient practices while mitigating the risks, such as formulating abrasives that are effective without being damaging. The modern movement isn't just a blind return to the past. It's an informed synthesis of traditional knowledge and contemporary science, creating products that are both naturally derived and scientifically validated. This fascinating alignment shows that the ancient Egyptians were, in a sense, pioneers of the clean beauty trend thousands of years before it had a name. Their formula was a prototype for what we now seek, a multifunctional plant-based product that addresses health and sensory pleasure without relying on a long list of synthetic additives. Seeing their recipe not as a historical curiosity, but as a precursor to a major modern trend adds a new layer of respect for their ingenuity. It suggests that the fundamental human desire for effective natural self-care is a constant, and that the solutions we value today are often elegant rediscoveries of principles that have been with us for a very, very long time. So, after mixing it, tasting it, and analyzing its components with modern science, we arrive at the big question: would this Egyptian toothpaste have actually worked? The answer is a fascinating and resounding yes, but with some very important caveats that define its success within the context of its time. For an ancient Egyptian, this recipe would have been a remarkably effective and sophisticated solution to the most pressing oral health problems they faced. Its primary strength lies in its multi-targeted approach. The abrasive salt provided the essential mechanical action needed to scrape away the sticky plaque and food debris that, if left unchecked, leads to gum disease and decay. This alone would have set it far above doing nothing or using a simple twig. Then, the antibacterial properties of the mint and pepper would have delivered a powerful 1-2 punch against the microbes causing bad breath and infection, while the pepper's anti-inflammatory effect could have soothed tender gum. If the formula included iris root, it might have even offered a primitive form of enamel protection. For a civilization without any concept of bacteria, this empirical combination of cleaning, healing, and freshening agents was nothing short of ingenious. However, we must judge its effectiveness against the real-world threats of the era, not our modern standards. The greatest dangers in ancient Egypt were not slowly developing cavities, but acute and painful conditions like abscesses and severe gum infections that could lead to malnutrition or even fatal septicemia. A paste that effectively removed the primary cause of these issues, plaque buildup, would have been a life-saving preventative measure. The intense medicinal sensation of the pepper, which we found challenging, would likely have been interpreted as a positive sign of the paste's healing power actively at work. The goal wasn't a minty fresh sensory experience, it was a feeling of potent herbal purification. In a world where a toothache could be a death sentence, the immediate benefit of a thoroughly clean mouth and the perceived treatment of gum inflammation would have far outweighed any abstract long-term risk. This brings us to the crucial caveats. From our modern dental perspective, the recipe has significant flaws. The inconsistent hand-ground rock salt was undoubtedly too abrasive for daily use over a lifetime, gradually wearing away precious tooth enamel and potentially leading to increased sensitivity and decay later in life, a tragic irony. Furthermore, the formula offered no protection against acids, which we now know are a primary cause of cavities, and it lacked the targeted high-potency anti-cavity agents like fluoride that are standard today. But to focus solely on these shortcomings is to miss the point entirely. The ancient Egyptians were solving the problems they could see and feel with the tools they had. They prioritized immediate, tangible results over consequences they could never have observed. Their solution was perfectly calibrated for their reality, a world of immediate, painful threats rather than slow, invisible enamel erosion. Therefore, the true measure of this recipe's success isn't whether it would get approval from a modern dentist, but how it stacks up against everything else available for the next 3,000 years. When we look at the history of dental care, we see that the basic principle of using an abrasive powder persisted well into the 19th century, with people using substances like crushed brick, chalk, and charcoal ingredients often harsher and less sophisticated than the Egyptian blend. In that long historical view, the Egyptian recipe stands out as not just effective, but advanced. It was a holistic, multifunctional preparation that acknowledged the need for freshness and gum therapy, not just simple scrubbing. It represents a brilliant application of observed natural science, a testament to a culture that applied its considerable intellect to improving daily life in every way possible. So while we wouldn't recommend swapping your fluoride toothpaste for this ancient mixture today, we can absolutely conclude that for its time, it was a revolutionary and highly effective form of dental care, a shining example of ancient innovation that connected the simple act of brushing to a much larger philosophy of health and purity. But who actually enjoyed the benefits of this sophisticated dental care? The discovery of this recipe on a papyrus scroll immediately suggests a crucial social filter: literacy itself. In ancient Egypt, the ability to read and write was a skill reserved for a tiny, powerful elite scribes, priests, and high-ranking officials. A written recipe implies it was intended for an audience who could read it, likely for the management of a wealthy household, a temple complex, or perhaps even the royal court. This wasn't knowledge that was passed down orally through generations of farmers. It was documented information, and that in itself placed it within a privileged sphere. The ingredients tell a similar story of exclusivity. While rock salt and local mint might have been readily available to many, the other components point to a more luxurious product. Pepper, as we discussed, was a valuable import from distant lands, a luxury spice that would have been expensive and far from commonplace. The inclusion of such an ingredient transforms the toothpaste from a simple household remedy into a prestige item. Using a paste that contained pepper was not just about clean teeth. It was a subtle but clear display of wealth and access to far-flung trade networks. It would have been a daily affirmation of status, much like using a designer skincare product today. Furthermore, the time and labor required to gather, dry, and painstakingly grind ingredients like iris root would have been a significant investment, one that a peasant laborer toiling in the fields simply could not afford. Their oral hygiene likely extended no further than chewing on a fibrous stick, a practice common in many ancient cultures. The most compelling evidence for this social divide, however, comes not from papyrus, but from the Egyptians themselves, their mummified remains. Studies of mummies from different social classes reveal a stark contrast in dental health that paints a clear picture of who had access to better care. The mummies of pharaohs and nobles, despite their diets that were still rich in coarse breads that wore down teeth, often show signs of dental work and surprisingly less evidence of severe, life-threatening abscesses compared to the general population. This suggests that the elite had not only the means for preventive care, like our toothpaste recipe, but also access to skilled dental practitioners who could intervene when problems arose. There are even documented cases of mummies with primitive fillings made of resin or protective gold caps, indicating a level of dental intervention that was unimaginable for the average person. In contrast, the skeletal remains of ordinary workers and farmers tell a much grimmer story. Their teeth are frequently worn down to the pulp from a diet laden with gritty stone ground flour, leading to widespread abscesses, severe tooth loss, and evidence of chronic infections that would have caused immense suffering. For these individuals, a painful toothache was likely a common part of life, treated with prayers or perhaps a poultice rather than a daily regimen of preventive paste. The difference in their dental records is a direct reflection of their station in life. The ability to maintain oral health was therefore another marker of the vast inequality that characterized ancient Egyptian society. A clean, healthy mouth was a luxury, a sign that you lived far removed from the physical labor and limited resources that define the existence of the majority. This toothpaste recipe, then, is more than a medical formula. It is a tiny, intimate artifact of social stratification, a reminder that even the most personal daily rituals were shaped by one's place in the rigid hierarchy of the Nile. To understand the full significance of brushing one's teeth in ancient Egypt, we must look beyond the bathroom and toward the temple. In their worldview, the boundary between physical health and spiritual purity was exceptionally thin. The body was not merely a vessel for the individual, it was a temple for the Ka, or life force, and maintaining its cleanliness was a direct reflection of one's inner state in standing before the gods. Actions we consider mundane, like washing or dental care, were imbued with profound religious meaning. A clean mouth, therefore, wasn't just about avoiding bad breath, it was about being ritually prepared to speak prayers, recite spells, and make offerings without contaminating the sacred with the profane. Imagine a high priest preparing to enter the inner sanctum of a god like Amun-Ra. His purification rituals would have been extensive, involving multiple baths, specific diets, and the donning of fresh, clean linen. In this context, using a toothpaste infused with mint and lilies was likely the final, intimate step in this process, a way to ensure that even the breath he used to utter sacred invocations was as pure as possible. The choice of fragrant ingredients like mint and lilies takes on a deeper dimension when viewed through this spiritual lens. The ancient Egyptians believed that the gods were attracted to pleasant aromas. Temples were filled with the smoke of burning incense, and offerings of perfumed oils and flowers were standard practice. A foul odor, by contrast, was associated with chaos, decay, and evil spirits. By using a toothpaste that left the mouth smelling of cool mint and delicate flowers, an individual was essentially perfuming their breath, making it an offering in itself. Each exhalation during a prayer could be seen as sending a fragrant plea toward the heavens, a sensory signal of devotion and purity. This transforms the act of brushing from a simple matter of hygiene into a form of sympathetic magic. By making the breath smell divine, one could draw closer to the divine. The lily, in particular, held powerful symbolic weight. As a relative of the lotus flower, which emerged pure and beautiful from the muddy waters of the Nile to open each morning with the sun, it was a potent symbol of rebirth and creation. Using a paste containing lily flowers might have been a way to symbolically align one's own mouth, the source of speech, sustenance, and life, with this cycle of daily renewal and cosmic order. This connection becomes even more compelling when we consider the concept of Ma'at, the foundational principle of truth, balance, and cosmic order that governed Egyptian society. Upholding Ma'at was the responsibility of every individual, but especially the pharaoh and the priestly class. It involved acting with truthfulness, participating in correct rituals, and maintaining personal harmony. Physical cleanliness was a direct, tangible expression of this harmony. A body free from dirt and unpleasant odors was an outer manifestation of an inner state aligned with Ma'at. Conversely, neglect of the body could be seen as a step toward isfet, or chaos. Therefore, the daily ritual of cleaning one's teeth with a specially prepared paste was a small but significant act of cosmic maintenance. It was a personal commitment to upholding order over chaos, purity over pollution. For a scribe about to record an important decree or a vizier preparing to dispense justice, having a mouth cleansed with sacred ingredients was a way to ensure that their words and actions were in harmony with Ma'at. We can even see echoes of this belief in their funerary practices. The elaborate mummification process was at its core the ultimate act of purification, designed to make the body a perfect, eternal vessel for the soul's journey to the afterlife. Among the many steps involved, the mouth received special attention. The opening of the mouth ceremony was a crucial ritual performed on the mummy to restore its senses, allowing the deceased to see, hear, eat, and speak in the next world. This underscores the supreme importance of the mouth as the gateway to sustenance and communication for eternity. While we don't have direct evidence that toothpaste was used in mummification, the symbolic parallel is striking. The care taken to ritually purify and reactivate the mouth for the afterlife mirrors the care taken to keep it clean and pure in life. Both actions were about ensuring the individual was properly prepared to interface with the divine, whether in daily temple rituals or in the ultimate journey to the realm of the gods. In this light, the humble toothpaste recipe becomes more than a medical prescription. It is a key that unlocks a deeper understanding of how the ancient Egyptians seamlessly wove the threads of health, piety, and cosmic order into the very fabric of their daily lives. And that enduring legacy is not confined to history books. It's alive and well on the very shelves of our stores today. The principles discovered by Egyptian healers have experienced a remarkable renaissance in the modern wellness industry, where consumers are increasingly seeking out natural alternatives. If you explore the oral care aisle of any health food store or browse online marketplaces, you'll find a fascinating array of products that feel like direct descendants of our ancient recipe. These aren't just novelty items, they are serious formulations that often explicitly market themselves by invoking the wisdom of the past, creating a powerful bridge between ancient ingenuity and contemporary science. Take, for instance, the prominent use of salt in modern dentistry. While we've moved far beyond coarse rock salt, the therapeutic benefits of saline solutions are a standard part of dental care. Dentists frequently recommend warm salt water rinses after procedures like tooth extractions or for treating minor gum infections. The reason is the same as it was 4,000 years ago. Salt creates a hypertonic environment that draws out fluid from inflamed tissues, reducing swelling, and its mild antiseptic properties help keep the area clean. This is a perfect example of an ancient observation being validated by modern microbiology. The Egyptians knew it worked from experience. We now understand the precise osmotic and cellular mechanisms behind why it works. Furthermore, several modern toothpaste brands, particularly those in the natural sector, have reintroduced salt as a primary ingredient. These products often feature finely ground sea salt or Himalayan pink salt, touting its ability to clean deeply, reduce bacteria, and promote healthy gums claims that echo the very benefits an Egyptian priest would have appreciated. The influence of the Egyptian herbal arsenal is even more widespread. The mint that provided a refreshing sensation along the Nile is now a global industry, with peppermint and spearmint oils being the undisputed kings of mouthfeel in virtually every commercial toothpaste. But the connection goes deeper than just flavor. Many modern, herbal, or botanical toothpastes have expanded the palate far beyond mint, creating blends that would seem very familiar to an ancient apothecary. It's now common to find toothpastes containing extract of chamomile for its soothing properties, myrrh for its historical use as an antiseptic and astringent, and even tea tree oil, a powerful antimicrobial agent discovered by indigenous Australians. These formulations represent a direct philosophical lineage. They are multi-herbal combinations designed to address specific oral health issues, much like the Egyptian blend of mint for freshness, pepper for antimicrobial action, and iris for potential protection. This inspiration often moves beyond subtle influence to become a central marketing strategy. Several companies consciously frame their products as a return to ancient, time-tested remedies. You can find toothpastes and powders that proudly state they are based on a 4,000-year-old Egyptian recipe or inspired by the wisdom of Ayurveda, another ancient medical system from India that emphasizes herbal treatments. This is a powerful selling point in an age where consumers are wary of long lists of unpronounceable synthetic chemicals. By linking their product to a romanticized, natural past, these brands tap into a desire for simplicity and authenticity. They suggest that the solutions to our modern problems have been with us all along, hidden in the archives of history, waiting to be rediscovered and refined with our superior technology. This refinement is the crucial difference. While the ancient Egyptians were brilliant empiricists, modern companies have the tools to isolate, standardize, and optimize these natural ingredients. A contemporary toothpaste doesn't just contain crushed mint leaves. It uses a carefully measured concentration of menthol to ensure a consistent and effective sensation. Instead of guessing at the grinding consistency of salt, manufacturers use precisely calibrated abrasives like hydrated silica that are proven to be effective at plaque removal without damaging enamel. The legacy is not in blindly copying the old recipe, but in understanding the principles behind it and applying them with greater precision and safety. We've taken their core idea that nature provides effective tools for oral care and elevated it with clinical research, quality control, and a deeper understanding of oral biology. This synergy of ancient inspiration and modern validation shows a profound respect for the past while confidently building upon it, ensuring that the quest for a healthy smile, which began with a mortar and pestle by the Nile, continues to evolve in exciting new ways. This journey we have taken, from translating a papyrus to grinding ingredients with a stone mortar, represents far more than just a quirky experiment. It is a direct engagement with a powerful field of research known as experimental archaeology. This discipline moves beyond the traditional tools of the historian, the careful study of texts and artifacts, and instead tries to physically reconstruct the past to answer questions that written records alone can never resolve. By mixing this toothpaste and using it, we haven't just learned about a recipe, we have gained intimate, tangible insights into the daily life, the practical challenges, and the sheer ingenuity of the people who created it. A text can tell you the ingredients, but it cannot convey the aching strain in your forearm from grinding iris root, or the surprising, potent battle between pepper and mint on your tongue. These are forms of knowledge that are felt, not just read. Consider the difference between reading a description of an ancient Egyptian house and actually building one using their tools and materials. The text might give you dimensions and a list of building supplies, mud bricks, palm wood, reeds. But it is only by trying to mix the mud, form the bricks under the hot sun, and lift the heavy beams into place that you truly understand the immense collective effort required for even simple construction. You gain a profound appreciation for the social organization needed, the blisters earned, and the clever adaptations developed to cope with the environment. Experimental archaeology bridges the gap between the theoretical and the practical, between what we think we know and how things actually worked in the hands of the people who used them. It turns abstract knowledge into embodied experience. This hands-on approach is invaluable for testing our assumptions about the past. Scholars can debate for years over the interpretation of a single word in a text, like whether that ingredient was rock salt or iris root. But when you physically try both versions, the differences become starkly apparent. The effort required to pulverize the hard iris root versus the relative ease of grinding salt immediately suggests why one might have been a premium ingredient. The sensory experience of each blend offers clues about their intended use. Was it purely abrasive, or was there a therapeutic goal? Experimentation allows us to move from "it might have been" to "this is how it could have functioned," providing a crucial reality check for historical theories. It grounds our understanding in the physical world, with all its constraints of time, energy, and material properties. Perhaps the greatest gift of experimental archaeology is the way it humanizes history. When you spend an hour grinding ingredients for a single brushing of toothpaste, you develop a deep, personal respect for the daily labor that defined ancient life. This wasn't a quick squeeze from a tube, it was a time-consuming process that required patience and skill. You start to imagine the rhythm of a household, the sound of the pestle against the mortar in the early morning, the shared knowledge of how to achieve the right consistency. This simple act connects us to the individuals who performed it, not as distant, idealized figures from a tomb painting, but as real people with sore wrists and a desire for a clean mouth. It transforms history from a series of events into a tapestry of lived experiences. Furthermore, these experiments often reveal the hidden sophistication of ancient technology. Our initial reaction to the toothpaste recipe might have been that it was primitive, but by recreating it, we uncovered its complexity, the combination of abrasive, antiseptic, antibacterial, and potentially protective elements. This was not a random mixture, it was a carefully calibrated formula. Experimental archaeology consistently shows us that what we dismiss as simple was often the product of generations of trial and error, of keen observation and brilliant problem solving. The people of the past were not less intelligent than we are. They were experts in the materials and challenges of their own time. By walking in their footsteps, even for a moment, we gain a newfound respect for their innovative spirit. Ultimately, this field reminds us that history is not just about kings and battles. It is about the texture of daily existence, the taste of food, the feel of clothing, the smell of a workshop. These are the things that made up the reality of most people's lives, yet they are precisely the details that are hardest to preserve in the archaeological record. By physically recreating objects and practices, from toothpaste to pottery to bread making, experimental archaeology fills in these silent gaps. It gives a voice to the mundane, allowing us to hear the echoes of ordinary life that resonate across the centuries. Our test of this Egyptian toothpaste is a small but powerful example of how we can reach through time, not with a telescope, but with our own hands, to touch the past and understand the clever, resourceful, and deeply human individuals who shaped it. So, we have traveled a remarkable path together, from the dusty scrolls of a papyrus library to the gritty texture of a mortar and pestle, and finally, to the unforgettable sensation of that first brush. This journey has been more than an experiment. It has been a conversation across 4,000 years. And what have we learned? The ancient Egyptians were not merely pyramid builders. They were sophisticated chemists of daily life. Their approach to dental care was not a crude guess, but a thoughtfully engineered solution, combining abrasive cleaning with antibacterial and therapeutic agents in a way that was genuinely advanced for its time. They understood the need for freshness, the importance of gum health, and may have even stumbled upon a primitive form of fluoride protection. This was not magic, it was practical, observed science. Our test yielded results that were as complex as the recipe itself. The paste was undeniably effective as a mechanical cleaner, leaving the teeth feeling remarkably smooth and free of plaque. The experience, however, was a world away from our modern expectations, a bracing and medicinal ritual defined by the heat of pepper and the earthy coolness of mint, rather than a sweet, foamy luxury. We also confronted the trade-offs, the potential for long-term enamel damage from the abrasive salt, and the challenging taste that prioritized function over pleasure. Yet, judging this formula by our standards misses the point. For an Egyptian, facing the immediate threat of painful infection, this paste would have been a powerful tool for health and a profound act of spiritual purification, connecting the simple act of brushing to the cosmic order of man. Ultimately, this experiment reveals a beautiful and humbling connection. The human desire for a clean, healthy mouth is a constant thread woven through history, linking our modern tubes of gel to an Egyptian ceramic jar of herbal powder. It reminds us that innovation is not always about invention, but often about rediscovery. The principles the Egyptians mastered using natural abrasives, plant-based antiseptics, and therapeutic herbs are experiencing a vibrant resurgence in our own time, proving that their wisdom still has something to teach us. This is just one mystery unlocked from the sands of time. Countless other recipes, crafts, and forgotten technologies are waiting for their stories to be told. We want to hear from you. What piece of ancient history would you like to see us bring to life? Is there a Roman cosmetic, a medieval perfume, or an Inca building technique that sparks your curiosity? Share your ideas in the comments below. Your suggestion could be the focus of our next adventure. If you enjoyed this journey back to the world of the pharaohs, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the fascinating secrets of the past. Thank you for joining us on this incredible experiment. Until next time, keep wondering.